On my goat, giving me an idea so that I don't need to get a job. All my homies love Shimamon. Right. Anyways, I was bored. I want to play a game. You now get gameplay and music. Fun! So, first video. Monster Under My Bed. It is not in a playlist. It is the first video not in a playlist, and it was released on May 11, 2021. Original notes are that the building we see living in here and in Hunger are different. The time shown is 3:08 a.m. This slightly doesn't mean anything. The dress we see Vic in correlates more with the dress we see in childhood, and so does her general appearance. Vic's phone puts this in the early 2000s, and the hand reaching out from the bed has 5 fingers, but doesn't have the gloves that Shadow has. Perhaps it was a previous design, perhaps it has nothing to do with it. The original interpretation was that since it's not in a playlist, it's probably not canon, so we're not going to be thinking too much about it. So what is new about my interpretation? Like I mentioned in the video about whether ICS has a story or not, despite being the earliest video on the channel, it is actually newer than the creepypasta videos. Now, I think this was before ICS actually had a story. It was just random bits of horror for ICS's creator to test the waters of posting videos. 5 years ago, this video was posted. And we're proud of you, whoever you are, you who created ICS. I'm just gonna call you Icy, as in Frozen, because you're cool. The second video, Water, is in the playlist Childhood. It is the first video in that playlist. It was released on May 19th, 2021. The original notes were that Shadow debuts here, and which means this video is presumably the earliest chronologically. This is important because it means the traumatic events that happened, or the person who caused it, was present very early in Vic's life. However, this is Shadow without the spikes, which, if you remember, is the spikes usually indicate that the Shadow is the one who's directly harming Nia. Shadow entering the water might mean that whatever this traumatic event was will forever be associated with water. This seems plausible considering further into the series there's constant symbolism of traumatic events being associated with water. It happens rather early in Nia's life, likely before the series begins. This place is also important in later videos, like we see in Water and Muta. And what's new? There isn't much. It's the first in the timeline as far as we can tell. It seems symbolic of the first event in ICS's narrative. Some form of sexual assault occurred. That shot makes it very clear. That, or Nia quickly moving her legs out of the water, symbolizes her managing to escape the danger. So that's another element of tragedy. She managed to avoid it, only to fall into it later. I also checked the backgrounds. They're just scribbles. Third video, Hunger. It's not a playlist, the second video in the playlist, and was released on June 24, 2023. The building here is different from Monster Under My Bed and vaguely resembles the hospital in later videos, but since it's not a playlist, I didn't look into it too much. Yes, Nia was using the computer mouse with her foot. And the raincoat that Nia uses here resembles Shadow in shape. Which is the idea of water being associated with a traumatizing event. Water comes down from the sky. I don't know what my reasoning was that back then. Interestingly, the idea that Nia's hand is mutilated vaguely resembles Shadow's hand in Bad Morning. The original interpretation was that there's a strange correlation with certain elements of Nia here connected to what we would later see of Shadow. And she's related to Shadow. And I still personally dislike the idea that Shadow is Nia. It's unlikely, but it's not completely out of the picture, especially with what we see later in Water. What's new? Nothing other than basically uncanon stuff. This is just how Nia lives. Peak female performance, actually. Also, the hood thing might be just because IC only knows one way to draw a hood that fits the sharp art style. Fourth video, Leave Me Alone in the playlist Nightmare. The 6th video in that playlist. It is now the 5th video on the playlist and was released on July 28, 2021. Here we see two means of suicide, a gun and a noose. This is the only time we see gun in this context, and it's the first time we see a noose in this context. And thinking about it, it is the first time we see a gun at all. The clothing that she wears here again is very similar to that in childhood. This may simply be before she was given an outfit. Whatever it is in the window resembles a part of a distorted face, perhaps the face of the person who caused the traumatic event. Maybe the person is in the house or constantly supervising her. The original interpretations are that there were two interpretations, that either Nia's in mental condition without much more of a hidden meaning, or that whoever caused the traumatic event is close to Nia or her family. There is nothing new for this video. Fifth video, Childhood. It is in the playlist Childhood. It is the third video in that playlist. It is released on August 10, 2021. The original notes were that the room does not resemble anything we've seen yet. The monster head moves slightly, but nothing else. It also does not closely resemble any other monster we've seen. As with all the other videos, in Childhood, Nick wears that white dress, which no longer applies. There are multiple videos in Childhood where Nia does not wear that white dress. Actually, back then it didn't play either, because I'm pretty sure Shadows in my room also had Nia in the striped shirt. Original interpretation. There really isn't much here. It's a simple representation of a common childhood fear. Anything is unknown, and there's nothing new for this video. At least the room looks like the one from Shadows in my room. Video number 6, Migraine, is not on a playlist. It is the third video not on a playlist, and is released on August 14th, 2021. It's possible the person we see is not Nia, but there isn't really much to tell us. In the original interpretation, there's nothing to really say about it, and in my new interpretation, there's nothing else either. Video 7, Surprise, is The Nightmare, the third video in that playlist, released on September 9, 2021. This is the first time we see Nia in stripped clothing. When Shadow appears at the beginning, he looks like the dress Nia wears in some videos. The way Shadow manifests here is similar to what we see later in Suffocation. This video is the only exception to the rule in later videos where Shadow has spikes on his shoulders whenever he injures or kills Nia, other than Trick or Treat. Though this might just be because it's in an earlier video before that rule was established. At the end, some organs are expelled from Nia. The original interpretation is that since this is a very early Nightmare playlist, likely earlier in the timeline, so it may be that it's Nia's first period, or that it may simply be how Nia surprised for her period. But this does put into question why Shadow is here in the first place. There's nothing to add with a new interpretation. Video number 8, Sky. It was originally in Nightmare, it is now in Insanity. It was the 5th video in Nightmare, but is now the 10th video in Insanity. Released on September 19, 2021. There's not much to say. When the eyes reveal, the stars become neurons. I'm not even gonna bother reading this interpretation. The grammar's horrible here. And there isn't much that we can tell concretely from it being changed from playlists. Maybe since at the end of the playlist it represents a time when Nia was let out of the hospital, but was still being supervised. Maybe not supervised, just watched. Video number 9, Angel. In the playlist Insanity, number 2 in that playlist was released on September 26, 2021. This is one of 2 times that we see Nia as an angel, and it's the only time we see the color green. It's not actually the only time we see the color green, it is the first time. This is also the first of 3 times we see hospital staff. That number is probably increased. The original interpretation was that Nia was dying from the hospital and somehow being revived. However, the new interpretation was that, yeah, she's probably just all lost in the sauce, high in some painkillers while she's being given the green. I think again is a more literal video though. Video number 10, Morning. The playlist Nightmare is no longer in a playlist. It used to be number 7 in Nightmare. It is now the 4th video and not in a playlist, released on October 9, 2021. There's not much. There's a ghostly figure. The original interpretation was that it continued the pattern of water being associated with trauma. Yeah, there's nothing new here, but I gotta get back to calling these things torments. That's kind of fire. That's a fire name for those little ghostly things. And that's 10 videos. That's gonna be all for this video. Yeah, I don't got anything to add. Bye-bye.